In this video, I will be demonstrating three concepts. I will be demonstrating the concept of how arrays work in JavaScript. I will be demonstrating how the document object model can be manipulated, and I will be demonstrating how JavaScript objects can be created and used. To start off with, let's start by looking at the code that we already have so far in this document. The name of the file is slideexamples_demo.html, and you will notice that there is already some HTML and the structure of some JavaScript already present. This is what the page actually looks like. In Google Chrome, there are three buttons: array behavior, DOM manipulation, object examples, and clear. On clicking each of these buttons, there is a function that executes. Those functions are array behavior, DOM man, and object executions. The clear button triggers the clean function, basically cleaning out the output IDs in our HTML. That basically means that there are two paths to this web page. The first one is on the left hand side and the second one is on the right hand side. Please note that I'm using Bootstrap grid layout over here, and so my button's on the left hand side and the outputs div is on the right hand side. So to start off with, let's start by taking a look at array behaviors. There are many ways to declare arrays in JavaScript. One easy way to create arrays is by simply saying, within the array behavior function, I'm going to start by writing the JavaScript code to demonstrate array behavior. I can start declaring an array called birds, and I can use the new keyword and say I have a new array. Now I can specify the number of elements I want to have in that array, or I can specify what elements constitute that array. So let's say I have three birds, parrots, or a parrot in fact, pigeon, and let's say an owl. I have three birds in this array. This is one way you can declare an array. Other ways you can declare arrays is by using square brackets. I'm just going to do this outside of that function itself. The reason I'm doing this outside of the JavaScript function array behavior will become clear when we take a look at some of the other functions. I can declare array call names, and here's another way I can do this. This is another way one can declare arrays. So there are two ways we can declare arrays using the new array statement. We can also use the square brackets to declare arrays by putting elements in them. Now, if one wants to actually obtain what is in an array, each of these elements in the array starts at position 0. So parrot occupies position 0 in the array, pigeon position 1, and owl position 2. So if I was interested in, let's say, the outputs ID over here, having the first element of the birds array printed out, the way I would maybe do that is to do So what this would do would get the 0th element in the birds array and present it in the outputs HTML. Let's take a look at this functioning. Just reloading this. If I click on array behavior, I see the first element, which is parrot 0, occupies the 0 position, now printed out on the inner HTML of the outputs ID. Now, one can also add additional elements to an array, and so one can do that using the push statement, but one can also replace elements of an array. So for instance, if I wanted to replace parrot by, let's say, a sparrow, now I'm going to see parrot and sparrow. The reason I'm going to see parrot is because that's what this inner HTML is doing. But now the 0th element is sparrow, and so now sparrow has been added to parrot. Now I can add elements to the array by typing in using the push method. And one of the interesting things about arrays is that arrays are not of one specific type. So if I wanted to, I could have multiple elements of different types in the array. So now I can push a number into the array of birds, and so now I can add many other elements. And so one of the things I could do is now if I just type in the name of the array, the entire array is going to be printed out. Oops. Let me reload this page. And you will see the first one was printing out parrot, the second one was printing out sparrow, third one is printing out sparrow, which is what replaced parrot. Pigeon and owl still exist in the array, and the last element in position number 3 is the number 98. And so you see that over here. And so JavaScript arrays can contain elements of different data types. Now, if I wanted to, I could also remove elements from the array. The way to do that is use the pop method. If I use the pop method, what's going to happen is that the last element, which was 98, is not going to be present anymore. As you can see, the element 98 has been popped out. Now, what if I wanted to add an element into the first position and move every other element down a little bit? Well, here's the way I can do that. As you can see, Unshift has shifted sparrow, pigeon, and owl to the right. So it's moved those down by 1 position. I can also loop through the array And it's very easy to loop through an array. I can use a for loop. One can also do this with a while loop. In this case, I shall do and I can refer to the ith element of birds, and after printing out the ith element of birds in the inner HTML, all I'm going to do is I'm going to add a break. You'll see I printed out 100, sparrow, pigeon, and owl, which are the current contents of the array at the end of this function. This is a little bit about how arrays can be used in JavaScript. Arrays are really data structures in which we can store, well, really data. Arrays can hold a variety of different types of data simultaneously. Arrays can also actually hold functions if you'd like. Arrays start at position 0 and move up. You can use a variety of other methods that are available within arrays to push or to add, to remove, and to move elements within the array. The next JavaScript function I'd like to talk about is DOM-man. In this case, DOM manipulation. Now we know that we can add HTML using the inner HTML property of the document. Another way we can manipulate the DOM is by using the create element method and the append child method that's available within JavaScript. Here is a simple way in which we can do that. I'm just going to clear. Now, first of all, DOM manipulation function does nothing so far because there's nothing in here. So let's actually do something. Let's take these names that are present in the names array and actually have them printed out on the right hand side under the outputs div in bulleted form. So 2 bullets, just an unordered list where we have the 2 names bulleted, right? So simple enough. Well, here's the way we can do this. I'm just going to create a variable called unordered list. So just unlist. And so what we can do is we can create an element. In this case, the element we want to create is UL, or an unordered list. And so you can use the create element to create any type of element you'd like. You can create divs, you can create paragraphs, spans, images, whatever HTML element you might choose to create. And so now what we're going to do is use again a loop. We're going to use names.length. So length is a property of an array. So we're going to loop to the length of the array. And what we're going to do is we're going to create list elements within that unordered list element. So we're going to create an li element. So we'll create an li element, and what I'm now going to do is I'm going to create a text node. So really, what is the text that goes inside the li element? And what that's going to be is the ith value of name. So it's going to be the name basically. So text the first time around is going to contain Nikhil. The second time around for the loop is going to contain Akhil. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the text element, append it to the li element, and then I'm going to take the li element and append it to the UL element. So what I'm going to do is I want to say the li element has a child, and the child is the text element. And after I have added the text element as a child to the li element, to the unlist element, I'm going to append a child, and that is going to be the li element. And so what this loop is going to do is I start out by creating an unordered list element, and then while I'm looping through the array of names, I'm creating li elements and I'm creating text elements. I'm appending the text element to the li element, and then I'm appending the li element to the unlist or the unordered list element. So refreshing this, clicking on DOM manipulation. Oh, I have an error over here. Now, it's important to actually read what the error says. Uncaught type error, document create element is not a function. Now, that tells me there's something wrong with the way I probably spelled element, and you'll see that the L is capitalized. So JavaScript is obviously case sensitive. That should be a lowercase l. And refresh this once again. And now this function is not running. Well, let's see what's going on over here. Aha. Now, there is one thing I have forgotten to do over here. While I have created the unlist element, I have forgotten to do something else. I need to take this unlist element and actually add it to, as a child, to outputs. That's the one step I forgot. I thought I had completed that, but basically what I have now is I have this unlist element, but it doesn't know where to go, right? And so the last thing I need to do there we go. That's the final step. That slipped my mind. There we go. And so we have bulleted names, Nikhil and Akhil, that show up in the outputs. This is how one might manipulate the document object model by using the create element methods, create text node, and appending child methods. Obviously, there are a lot more methods that allow us to manipulate the DOM. This is just a very simple introduction to this. One might actually find manipulating and writing actual HTML like simpler, right? Because one can actually imagine, instead of creating elements, I could just have like the actual HTML for UL tags and LI tags and so on and so forth, right? That might actually make it more easier. So I'm not one of those people that likes this way of working with the document object model, but this is available to us. The third concept I'd like to talk to you all about is JavaScript Object. Now, objects are really associated sets of data, right? And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to learn how to make an object. And the object is going to be people, right? We have three attributes for people. We have names of people, ages of people, and salaries of people. And so we're going to use data that's present in arrays to create objects of people. And we're going to take those objects of people and store them in another array. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these arrays of people information to create objects of these people, and then we're going to store these people objects or person objects in like a person's array. And then we're going to learn how to do loop through that array and get information about these objects out. So to start off with, let's create the array that's going to hold the person objects. So again, I'm going to work in this method, in this function called objx, and that's basically object examples. So Once I click this, whatever I do in this function is going to execute. So here's another way one can declare an array. One can declare an array of a specific size. In this case, arrays of size 2. Now, what I've got to do is now I've got to make the objects of that are actually going to go inside this array. So to do that, so if I iterate over names, or if I loop over names, length of names, names as 2, ages as 2, salaries as 2. Now, what I'm now going to have to do is, while looping through names, create an object of person. And so the way I do that, I'm going to say let person equal to, now objects are created using curly braces, and objects are really key value pairs. And so here's how I would create an object of a person. The key being name, and the value corresponding to name being the ith element of the name. Age being the key, ages I being the value corresponding to that key. Salary being the key, salaries I being the value corresponding to that key. This allows me to create a person object that has 3 keys, name, age, and salary, and has values names I, ages I, salaries I. And so for I equal to 0, it's going to be nickel, 99, and 10,000. Now, if I want to add this person into the array, one of the ways I would be able to do that is to say persons I for the ith position, so the 0th position in the persons array, put this person object. And that's it. It's just that simple. I've made an object that has key value pairs, and I'm putting that person object into the persons array. Right? Now arrays can hold, so an array can hold strings, numbers, it can hold functions, and it can also hold objects now. Now, if I just simply did console log persons at this point in time after the loop, what I should see in the console log is something that looks like an array that has objects. So click on object examples, and you'll see I have an array that has 2 elements, and each element is an object that has name, age, and salary. Name, age, and salary with corresponding values. So those are the keys, and those are the values. But this is itself an array, right? So persons is an array. I have console logged out the contents of the array. Now I might actually be interested in looping through this array, and as I'm looping through the array, go to an object and get the keys and values out from that object. Here's how I might do that. Now there are lots of methods available to us, and JavaScript actually provides for us a for each method for arrays, allowing me to loop through arrays using a for each method. And so I could do persons for each. And so basically this is saying for each value of, for each element in the persons array, I want to do something. I want to run a function. For each value of the person's array, I want to run a function on each person. And here's what I want to do. I'm going to use a for loop to loop through the keys of person. For each key in person, I'm going to get the corresponding value associated with the key and store it in value. And then I'm going to console log the key and the value. And so again, what I'm doing is on the person's array, I'm running the for each function or the for each method. And for each value of person, I'm running a function on each person object. What that function is going to do is it's going to loop through all the keys in the person object, get the value associated with that key and stored in value, and console log the key and the value. That's it. And so you will see I have name. So this one, number 2 over here, that's a product of the first console log persons. And after that I have name, nickel, 19, age 99, salary 10,000, name Michael, salary 101, age 101, salary 12,000. And this is a result of this console log. If I wanted to, I could go So there you go. One of the things that you can also do is use the document get element by ID, outputs inner HTML, get the key and value printed out in the HTML. This is just a little bit of formatting to add a break at the end of that. And so I get name, nickel, age 99, salary 10,000 with a break. Next iteration of the loop is printed on the next line. And so in this video, you've seen 3 short examples. First one having to do with array behaviors. The second one having to do with DOM manipulation in a slightly different way, other than using inner HTML. And the third, demonstrating some ways to create and use objects. Thank you very much for your patience with this video.